And I'm like, I'm going to like, that must feel good. You know, I've always wrote, well, I'm going to speak. So I started telling my story. And I think the very first time I did, the video got like 2 million views. And I was like, well, I found my calling on here.
Welcome to the show, Katie.
Thanks.
So, what's your sober date?
I May 2nd. Well, when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, I don't exactly know the date.
Oh, okay. So you've been sober for a little bit of time now, though.
So December 2011. Yes.
Oh, wow. So 10 years.
Yep.
And you quit because you were pregnant?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah,
because
I
it's hard for a lot of
actually
people.
got a DUI like 4 months before I got pregnant, and I always push everything off to the last minute. So I kept having my lawyer get it continued. And I ended up in this DUI alcoholic weekend program. And I was at this point visibly pregnant, and everybody's saying the DUI baby. And I was like, no, this is not how this is going to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
No.
Was that your first kid?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, was your drug of choice alcohol?
Yes.
Okay, I consider alcohol a drug, so that's,
Yeah, me too.
um, yeah, I'm used to the phrase by now, alcohol is a drug, period. For anybody that goes to that fellowship, they know that phrase very well by now. So, when did you start drinking?
Probably I was about 12, 11 or 12.
And you were drinking because you were with somebody or because you were escaping?
I was drinking to escape. I was being sexually abused as a kid. My mom hired like my best friend to be my babysitter. She was a few years older than me, and she was like, I'm not going to speak for her, but she was enjoying drinking. And then she was a few years older than me, and she started drinking with me, and we drank together for lots of years after that.
Yeah, and that's what usually happens. You find somebody with those kind of commonalities that you can bond over a drink with. And because I started at 12 or 11, but 12 was to forget, right? First person I knew died, and that's when I was like, I got to escape. You know what I mean? And so now you were sexually abused. Was that your stepdad?
My uncle.
Your uncle. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, because I see so many stories because you're on TikTok, right?
Yeah, Tiffany. It was Tiffany's stepdad, my uncle. Yep.
Okay. Now, because Tiffany is also I've talked to, and unfortunately there's so many of you, but fortunately there are so many of you in numbers that you can bond together. Because how was your weekend?
Oh, it was amazing.
Like all the pictures I saw, like I didn't, but definitely did tear up a little bit when you guys met each other. That was adorable.
Yeah,
Like
and it
I
was
was
really
just
unexpected. So Ashley and Jackie were meeting in a different location, different time. It wasn't nothing to do with me and Tiffany. Tiffany was here. Chrissy was invited as well. So Jackie found out Tiffany was here, and then we just all met up. So it was like unexpected. So not just to meet one person, but 3 others as well.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like especially in person now that because of everything with COVID, like just to even see people for the first time is really
Yep.
cool. But let alone like that from the internet so intimately, and you get to know so well over time when you get to meet them in person. It's like, how do we act? I don't know how to act. This is
Yeah, that's what Tiffany was walking up to everybody saying, "You're a real person," and we're like, "We're all real." And I like that break of the ice that she used all night. It was awesome.
Yeah, like I can't pause you. Like it's not like
right. That's what
like
she
on a
was
screen.
saying, touching you, hugging you, and I'm like, I'm all for this.
That's so funny. Now you're also one of many girls from Ohio that I've talked to. That seems to be like I find guests on Facebook, in like recovery groups or Instagram or TikTok. It's mostly where I find my guests. And all of a sudden I realized I was like, I've had like 6 women on from Ohio, and like 2 of them were trafficked together at the same time by the same people, and
Oh my gosh.
they don't even really talk in recovery, and it was just randomly that I found one and the other. And one was like, "Oh my God, I know her. Like, I saw your episode. I know her. We were trafficked together."
Oh my God.
And I was like, okay, I got to do something with like a panel of like all Ohio like people. So
That's
Saturday,
cool.
this Saturday, we're sitting down. There's like 6 of us, and we're gonna do a big Skype, and they're all gonna like meet each other, including the 2 women that were trafficked together that haven't really talked. They're gonna be on there, and everyone's confirmed, and I'm excited to just like hear about how everyone has. I think it's important to put it out there how much we have in common with each other and talk
Absolutely.
about those things. Like the things that you talk about. Like when did you create like or start creating like TikToks about what happened?
Um, I
Sorry,
think
I go all over the place. Like I said, this is completely organic. So anything I have to ask is always going to be off the top of my head and no list order of questions. So we're going to talk
right.
whatever's on my mind in that moment. So my question is, when did you start like making these videos to talk about your story the way that you do? So like
So
open.
that definitely was not the plan because I didn't actually, before I got on TikTok, I would speak publicly about the things that happened, but not nowhere near like that. It actually made TikTok. My oldest daughter, she's my daughter, but legally, she is 18 and she asked me to do a TikTok dance and I did it. And she was like, I'm not posting this because no one's gonna watch you. So I was like, oh yeah, well, I got on TikTok and I found this kid on here and he was just spilling the tea on everything and anything. And I'm like watching him and I'm watching like from his first video to his last, his growth. And I'm like, he's brazen to say. So I'm testing the waters and I'm like, I'm going to like, that must feel good. You know, I've always wrote, well, I'm going to speak. So I started telling my story. And I think the very first time I did, the video got like 2 million views. And I was like, well, I found my calling on here.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
amount of women, like you said, the amount, well, I had my comments turned off, to be honest with you. I grew an account that had, I think it had 75,000 followers before I turned the comments on because I had such horrible anxiety about what people would say. Well, where people could share, where people could message me, I could see that there was so many women. And then when I turned it on, the outpour of you saved me, I've been waiting, like it was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm getting like chills just thinking about it because like it's, I don't reach nearly that many people, but even just reaching one person,
Yeah,
like sometimes even doing the podcast, I get frustrated because we're addicts and I look at numbers and, we get, high off that stimulation of having a good bounce of numbers, right?
right.
And so like if I'm having a down day, it was happening today. I'm like, why do I even do this? Like it was one of those things. And then like you get a message from somebody random that you never even heard of or met, and they're like, "Thank you so much for what you do. I watch all your videos, I watch all your episodes, and I'm sober right now watching them. Thank you." And I'm like, "Oh, that's why I do it."
Yeah,
You
and I
know?
think that's when I started to take it really serious. Tiffany, who you've also talked to, she messaged me. I had posted a video. I think we were at a beach. We might have been, I don't even remember where we were at, but it was a healthy family activity. And she messages me and says, like, I just came out of addiction and I just found you and you're the reason I'm going to get sober because I can see that you're having a healthy, normal life after you've been sexually abused, after you drank yourself to death numerous times almost, after you've destructed your whole life. And when she said that to me, I'm like, you keep going. Like you said, one person's all I wanted to reach. And
Yeah. And that's that kind of connection, and I made that connection with like other creators like you have where like we just create stuff together and we're talking about what we want to do and we hop on lives all the time. There's this dude in New York City, Inspire to Inspire, and he has some of the coolest like with ways of looking at things. His mom just passed on Thanksgiving and he's six
oh,
months clean, and he's talking about it every day and he's talking about how he feels. He's talking about the hurt, and we'd go on there and I love connecting because my thing was grief, right? That was why I got high. That's why I drank, was grief all the
right.
time. I didn't know how to process grief. And so you learn in sobriety, and then you learn how you can get through it too. Just like you can learn how you can get through your past traumas in sobriety without having to drink over it. And it's by talking about it. It's funny because we were drinking and getting high to shut ourselves up. But really, we would have felt a lot better if we just would have word vomit.
That's what I literally said. And even my mother that I no longer, even when we never seen eye to eye, said, holy crap, if I could have given you this kid and knew that you were going to change in such a way that you are so much more beneficial. You're like she said, you say so much more when you are sober than you ever did. Like you're exactly right. Like, look, I don't ever stop and I don't plan on it. So
And you write. Are you a
I,
writer?
yeah, I write. I wrote my first book in July and then just recently kind of surprised another one on Thanksgiving. Like
Just
TikTok knew it was coming, but I didn't push it. So
okay. So what are your books called? Let's talk about
um
them.
my first one's on the cover of the cover of it's on my sweatshirt. The first one's called Enola. And then the second one's called What Letter God Didn't Do This: Surviving Generational Trauma, Alcoholism, and Narcissistic Abuse.
Okay. I will have both links in the description. So if you're listening or watching, she'll send me the links, and I'll make sure they're directly to her books. Now the first one, Enola, Enola comes in my mind because I used to live in Harrisburg, and there's a town right next to it called Enola. Where does that name come from?
So that's so important to me because after I disclosed my sexual abuse to my mother, she found a blog she was read online. I don't know if it was, I don't know how old you are,
No,
if you remember.
wait. Your mom is that your uncle's sister?
Yes.
Okay, that was important to me to know.
Yes.
And I'm 35.
Yes. Okay. So you know what Zenga was. So
Yes.
my mom found a blog. I think it was on Zenga initially, and it was called Enola, and a lawyer wrote it. I've since looked for her, haven't been able to find her. An attorney wrote it. She had been sexually abused. She had talked about how it had affected her whole life from a kid until where she was at now. And my mom read that, and she, I think, to an attempt to help me. And so we no longer speak. So when I published my book, I'm like, one thing that came to mind, this book healed me as a human. And so Enola, here it is.
I love that. And the wet letters to God, because I don't know a lot about sexual trauma firsthand. So all I've ever heard about is secondhand, you know. So what does that mean to you, wet letters to God?
So my second, are you referring to my second book?
Yeah.
So my second book's called What Letter God Didn't Do This.
Oh, wet letter.
It's
Okay.
actually based off of a true story. When I was in high school, I went to a small private Catholic high school. We had a senior trip, and all of our parents were to write us a letter, and everybody's letters talking about, I go to school with all of these rich kids, and I didn't fit in there exactly. My parents weren't. We were middle class, just basic people, and so I already don't fit in there. Everybody's got seemingly perfect lives. I'm sure they all weren't, but
did you go to
my
Disney?
mom writes this 20-page letter telling, sorry you're an alcoholic by the time you're 18. I know you've been sexually abused. All of that's spills my entire life story in this letter. Yeah, so it was all read in front of my entire senior, which is only 28 people. But
did she know that it was going to get read in front of people?
So I was told yes. I asked my best friend there because her and her mom were like this. And I'm like, listen, did Carol know about this? She's like, yeah, because I knew about it. And I was like, so I'm assuming she knew.
Yeah. And
but
then again,
she outlined in detail the things that I didn't necessarily want all of my peers at the time to know.
Yeah. Where was your senior trip?
It was at a Roman Catholic church in a small town in Cary, Ohio. We stayed in a sister's convent for like 4 or 5 days.
Oh man, I'm so sorry for you. That's worse than my brother's.
It wasn't all a bad experience. Some of it was good, but sitting in that circle and my mom, spill it. Now I'm just telling the world. I hope they're all watching because. And to top that, they said I was most likely to be a McDonald's manager by the time I was, I think, 40 or something. Like, for one, who are you guys to insult? But hope they're all watching because now I'm telling the world and I don't care, Yeah,
exactly. And you still could be that McDonald's if you want to be. They're making better money nowadays,
Literally.
So I was only laughing. My brother is my sister and I, we both graduated from the same high school. I'm the oldest and she's the youngest. My parents moved to Massachusetts for a little while, and that's where my brother graduated. Our senior trip always from our high school was Disney World. And my brother's senior trip was going on a tour of like mansions in Newport, Rhode Island.
Oh man.
And so he was so butthurt all the time, still to this day with middle child syndrome, that you guys got to go to Disney World and I didn't.
That's so funny. Well, now you can tell him at least he didn't have to go to a church and confess all his sins for 3 days.
Yeah, he'll be so happy. He'll make him happy when he hears this. Chris, I know you're watching. I know you like to watch. There you go, buddy. So it wasn't the worst.
Right.
So now your drinking was that bad in high school to where your mom wrote that like so confidently?
It was bad enough that after it was read out loud, I snuck and they searched all of our stuff. It was that bad that I had a flask full of liquor there with me to drink after that letter was wrote. So.
Did they find all your liquor though?
They did not.
Okay, good for you. You know how to hide stuff.
They didn't find my cigarettes either, so.
They didn't find my cigarettes?
Yeah.
When did you start smoking cigarettes?
I was like 12, maybe 11.
Before you even start drinking?
Oh, yeah. That was an accident. My cousin and I, we worked really hard to steal a pack, and then they didn't have filters on them. So we worked really hard to steal another one, and I never quit. I don't think he did either. I quit 2 years ago now, but
I'm still trying to. It's, I learned how to inhale with a Black and Mild when I was like in 7th grade.
Oh no.
So however old that is, 12, 13. And then I
Yep.
was smoking Black and Milds like all the way down, like to the tip, inhaling the entire thing while like drinking with my friends. I'm like, I'm going through a pack of these in a night. Maybe I should switch to cigarettes because
Oh
it'll be
yeah.
safer. I shouldn't be smoking, and I can't smoke cigars to this day because I don't know how to not inhale. Like I can't not
Right.
inhale it. I don't know.
Right.
So your drinking's that bad. No DUIs in high school though, or anything like that?
No. I got like 4 days after I got my license, I was at a lit party in this like little town's close to me, and I was coming home and get pulled over literally just a few days later. My mom literally said, if you get caught drinking and driving this car, it's going for sale. She drank and drove hers, but I was allowed to drive mine. Does that make sense to you? But anyways, so I get pulled over, and I had been drinking, but they only cited me for like illegal lights, but no DUIs. I got an underage consumption right when I graduated, and then one DUI, and then I was just done.
Did you leave the house when you graduated high school?
I did.
And how was that kind of transformation of being on your own and being kind of away for the first time?
It wasn't really a transformation. So I lived with my dad all through school. And when I graduated, and I mean like right when I graduated, I started going wild. I was already wild though. Like I started going wild to where I didn't care like to come back, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
so my dad is a good human and a decent human. And my dad's like, you're not running it out of my house all hours of the night. I mean, at one point the man was sitting on the couch, crying when I came in. Like, I'm not, like, he told me, I did this with your mom and I'm not doing it with you. You're not coming down my sidewalk at 2 a.m. So that's how I end up moving in with my mom. So she's working night shift, and like, I'm still freshly graduated. That lasted about 2 or 3 weeks, and she's rubbing it in my face. I don't have anywhere to go. And I actually met this dude I'd never met before at a party, and like 4 days later I moved in with him.
Sounds accurate because it's the first person that you're going to attach to that's showing you attention and not giving you shit.
Right. I actually refer to this in my book, and I called it my first trauma bond, I think is really what it was. So
I could see that though. I mean, that makes a lot of sense because, you're very impressionable at that age and you've dealt with so much. And the first person that's going to show you care or any kind of attention and listen to you.
right.
Because you are not being listened to at your dad's because he doesn't want to hear your excuses.
Right.
Your mom is just giving you reasons to leave.
Right.
So like no one's listening to you, and now this guy is, so yeah, you're going to fall and fall fast. You're 19,
Right.
20 years old. Like, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Like, so, but do you guys then end up being toxic and drinking heavily together?
Absolutely.
There it is. I knew
It
that was
lasts
coming.
about
It's
a
textbook,
month.
Katie. That's textbook.
It lasts about a month in the new apartment. And we get into it one night, and I'm asleep, dead asleep, and this dude grabs me. I had, back in our day, we didn't get like fancy extensions. We glued them to our head, and he grabs my extensions so hard that they rip out of my head. It's physically bleeding. Grabs me my hair, throws me on the floor. I wake up. I've been drinking since 7 o'clock this morning all day long. What is going on right now? And we got into like a horrific, altercation, which resulted in me moving out right back into my mother's house. Like, it lasted, I don't even know if it was a month, maybe 3 weeks.
Did she unfortunately say told you so or something like that?
She tried to sympathize a little bit, and at the end she's like, I told you this, he was a whatever, her choice words for him were.
Yeah.
So she said it about everything, so I wasn't sure what was good, what was right, and what was wrong.
Yeah, you can't throw that at everything and expect me to understand it. So that makes sense.
No matter what I did, she found something wrong with it, something, beyond a measure of normal.
But it also sounds like you and your mom are very similar according to your dad.
At the time, yep.
Yeah, at the time, whereas with the drinking, that means your mom was probably drinking when they were together.
Yeah.
And which means like it would scare your dad because like, oh shit, like I've already seen this and how that turns out. And I don't want to.
He was petrified I was going to follow down the same path so much and it used to piss me off to my core so much that when I was pregnant with my daughter, he would say, I didn't want to be raising another kid this soon. And I would, that was I'm going to show you, you know what I mean? Like,
well, he knew.
When I seen her, I didn't have to show him because I had that mothering instinct,
Yeah.
But yeah, he worried that much that I'm going to end up taking care of. Yeah.
But if it was me and it was my daughter, I would kind of say the same thing in order to make her realize, like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? Because you're not
I
gonna be
mean,
able to force anybody to
I
do anything.
thoroughly understand now, and we
Yeah,
joke about it and talk about it, and he makes comments about how cruel it was, and I'm like, yeah, it really was.
yeah, but it's what you
Tough
had to
love.
do. Yeah, it worked. Because how old were you in 2011? When you got pregnant and you decided, now I'm gonna try sobriety.
I was 22.
Oh, so you were like that was like a year later.
Yeah.
Did you move back in with your dad to do that?
Nope.
You stay with your mom.
At this point, so I skipped an episode. So I lived
Okay.
with mom for maybe 2 or 3 more months, and my mom kind of said, like, she had let me stay there to straighten myself up, so I had quit drinking altogether. I still was slipping, and my aunt was influencing it greatly, but my mom said at one point, get up, get out of my house. It's in my book. This is no fucking flop house. You're not getting drunk and flopping your ass in my bed and laying around all day. Go find a job. Don't come back until you do. So when I was like 11 years old, I spent a lot of time at her sister's house, and I had met this boy I was madly in love with, and she moved, and they lived in a trailer park, and my mom would never let me go back. Like, you're not hanging out with that dirty little trailer park boy. And the day that she kicked me out of her house and told me to go find a job, that trailer park boy hired me at that job I ended up getting that day. So you guessed it, a few weeks later, I moved in a trailer with Trailer Park Boy.
We can call him Sean Hunter for reference.
And we still live together in our home now to this. It's been 15 years now, so good
That
result with it.
is, yeah, it was the right thing to do.
Right.
And so because you obviously you had a connection from when you were younger at 11, and had you had already had um what happened with your uncle, how old were you when that happened?
I was five. I want to tell you 5, but then I remember things, and a little younger than 5 until I was 11.
Oh,
So I
so
met him right when it was ending for the most part. And I remember like right when it was ending.
did it end because you got too old?
It ended because he went to prison
Did you because you said something?
for robbing the neighbor. And then
He
he
went.
got out of prison, meets another underage girl, moves my grandparents. She couldn't move in yet. She was only 13, but he ended up going to prison over that as well. So
Is he still there?
he is not.
He's
He's a
back out.
father. He lives a free life. He's a father. He's got daughters. He's just
It's scary.
average Joe next door.
Yep. And you wouldn't even know it
You would have no idea.
because it's not on the registered sex offenders list because
He
never
was on it. He was on the registered sex offenders list, and then he lucked into the victim ends up marrying him, and her sister marries an attorney. So it all worked out really good for him.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, okay, so now you're 11, and you meet this kid. So that's I think that's awesome. That is so fucking adorable. That's like a storybook, you know what I
Yeah, it
mean? Kind
really
of
is. And like
ending it.
my uncle literally ripped me away from him. I was getting my first kiss in the middle of a snowstorm in the middle of a trailer park, and my uncle is looking for me. Well, it's snowing, so my footprints led right to where I was at. And he snatched me up and said, "You'll never see her again." And I didn't for so many years.
And it's the ultimate like slap in the face to both your mom and your uncle. I feel like to
Yes.
have such an amazing life with this guy that they tried to keep you from at such a young age.
Right.
like but guess what though? I don't think it would have worked had you had stayed with him and known him that entire time. You needed to go through your trauma. You
Right.
needed to fix it, you needed to find yourself, and you needed to meet him again at the right time.
Right.
Like it
And when I
happened.
met him, he didn't drink at all. So he didn't enable my drinking. And he's one of those people, I mean, he's sensitive, but he's going to say at the end of the day, you can go to a treatment center, you can check yourself in somewhere, but until you actually
Once.
you wake up and want it, you have no willpower, and I'm not going to sympathize for you. And that's the way he was about it. And that's the way he is towards my mom. And that's the way he talks about my grandma. And he's right.
This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
Yeah, it's definitely a want and not a need. Whenever someone's talking in need, it's for somebody else's sake and they don't even know it. They don't even know, it's a subconscious thing, and I realized that when I was in rehab and someone's like, "Oh, I need to be sober. I don't know why I keep relapsing." I'm like, "Why do you need to be?"
You have
And
to want.
it just hit me, and because I was in rehab because I wanted to be there. I checked myself in. And I'm like, "Why do you need to be?" She's like, "Well, my parents and this, that, and the third." And I'm like, "Oh, see, I'm still sober because I want to be here.
Right.
I
You're
don't
not
want
there
to
for
do
someone
drugs.
else. Right.
I don't want to do drugs anymore. I want to figure this out. I've already done drugs for 20 years or drank for 20 years and done drugs for 10. I'm done with it. I want to learn a different way. Since I want it so bad is why it's working for me." And then it hit her. She got sober years later. It's funny because now she lives like 10 minutes from me in Pennsylvania, and we met in Los Angeles in rehab.
Aw.
Yeah, and so funny. But yeah, but she's good now, a year sober, so I'm very happy. She was like my little sister in rehab.
Me too.
And
Me too.
so that's how that happened. So you just celebrated basically 10 years.
Well, and I'm gonna speak on the 10 years. Like that 10 years is when I decided I can't, because I was violent. I drank myself to where my now husband would get out. His grandma didn't want me at the house. My grandma didn't want me at the house. She was tired of my shit. You know what I mean?
All the grandmas are like, "Get out of here."
Literally, my precious sweet old Mimi, she enabled me without knowing it, but everybody else knew, and that was just that. But probably it was on my 30th birthday. I wanted my mom never remembered my birthday, so I'm turning 30 and I was already depressed about my birthday. So I said, there's a gay bar here in town, and I loved going to it when I used to drink because it was open, accepting, no drama, no shit. So we went out that night, and I think I had literally half of a beer, and a big escapade of fucking chaos erupted. You know what I mean? And I'm like, this right here is why I don't drink anymore, why I don't go out anymore. And now the part of the reason why I don't speak to my mother anymore. Like, I am not doing this to my kids. This is the absolute end.
That is awesome. So I don't even consider that like a relapse. I consider
I don't
that
really either, but I like to
consider
bring
it
it up
that.
because,
Yeah, no, it's
always
important to bring up. Yeah, it's important to talk about because it's an important event. It's you putting it down for you and not you putting it down for your kid, right? It's
Right.
not you putting it down because you got too many DUIs and you have a kid in your belly, and then you got momentum because you had 9 years, 5 years, whatever, and then you feel like,
Right.
oh, and my husband doesn't drink anyway. It's not around me, and so you
Right.
get this momentum, but then you have that question of like, well, can I? Can I have a little? And can
Yeah.
I be a regular person? And a normie, as we call them. And
Right.
you had that half a drink, and then that I don't know if you work a program or anything, but we always say that your higher power does for you what you can't do for yourself.
Right.
So I don't call my higher power God. I call him Bill Murray personally. I don't choose. I grew up Catholic, so I don't like saying God. I go with
Absolutely.
Bill Murray instead. But sometimes that's what happens is your higher power does shit for you that you don't know that you need done for yourself. And in that moment, what you needed done was chaos around you for you to leave and be like, this is why. Because if you would have finished that drink, you would have ordered another. Telling you
And we
right,
would have been rolling. Yes.
telling you
I
right now.
wouldn't have made it home to my kids that night. And I wasn't drunk. So drunk, I would have left the problem there. But we took the problem, made sure it got home safely. And, just after that day, the next morning, and it was my actual birthday the next morning. And I woke up and was like, I am never doing that shit again. I'm never stepping in to a bar I said at the time, never a bar again, which I did this weekend for the first time and left there without starting a shit show. So that was amazing, you know?
Yeah, it's a totally different kind of feeling. Like when I used to do stand up, I used to, have to be drunk and high on stage in order to perform. And when I got sober, it was a concern for me, because even I started looking back and I'm like, oh shit, when I was in 8th grade and did Annie, I was drunk on stage. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I realized that we were drinking then too. When I did Fiddler, I was drunk. That's what happens. And we were sneaking in vodka into our Gatorade before
Right.
that's what you did in 7th grade, right? and I went to a
Exactly.
Catholic school for 1 year actually too. I went to a private Catholic high school for my freshman year, Paul Six High School, and then I left because I was
Did
so
you
tired.
drink more there?
There were so many more drugs at that school than my public school because all the kids were rich and they were past drinking and they were already on drugs.
Okay, so you did feel the rich part, but see, I went and
I was middle class. I was middle class there.
I went from drinking Mad Dog 2020 to E&J Brandy, like puking in a vacuum cleaner all night there. I was like, yeah, like this is great. So
The houses were a lot bigger.
The Catholic school definitely fed into that.
Yeah, the houses were much bigger, so the parties were bigger.
And the parents were always traveling. At least my friends' parents were.
Yeah, the parents were never home because they were out making money or they were spending their money.
Right.
And yeah, it was one of those things where we could do whatever we wanted. But I missed my friends at public school, so I went back to my public school, and then that's when my drinking really took off. Yeah, at 16 and a sophomore year, like it put me in the hospital the night before Easter once. From alcohol poisoning. I drank a fifth of Bacardi in 10 minutes and landed in the hospital.
Yep, been there too.
Yeah, that'll happen. And I haven't drank Bacardi since. I kind of want to get the bat tattooed on me just as like a fuck you to him.
Yeah.
Because I survived him.
That's funny.
But yeah, like, we could do a lot. But in high school, when I went to public, then we were drinking in the woods. Like, junior year, my best friend had to leave. His house was foreclosed on. Actually, my studio is named after him. He passed away in a car accident in 2012. But one of my favorite stories about him is when his house got foreclosed, he had 3 sisters and he lived with his mom. He was the only boy. And he had 2 older sisters and 1 younger. And he was like the man of the house since he was like 4. And he was an amazing guy. Everyone's always loved John. But when he moved, you know how it is. You know how to break into your own house.
Right.
So we broke into his house. And we threw so many parties by candlelight in his house. Everyone, if you came, you bring beer and you bring candlelights. And we played beer.
That was the best kind of parties anyways, because we've been there, done that too.
Until the banks figured it out and they locked it up and we couldn't get back in. They fixed
all the beer cans and stuff there for everybody to view while they're peeping the windows.
It was trash. The first time we went there, we scrounged a place for change and we collected $4.75 in quarters and dimes and we bought a pack of cigarettes together because this was like 2003, you know what I mean, 2002. So that $4 we could buy a pack of Reds and split it. So and the gas station was going to sell it to us because they didn't care. They're not there anymore for a reason. So
remember those days.
You're 32 now.
Yeah.
So that was a couple of years ago.
What was that?
That was a couple of years ago when you decided to put the drink down for good, when you're like, really, really was your choice to be like, I'm really done.
Yeah.
And since then, your life has obviously gotten better because most trailers I know aren't 2 stories.
Right.
And I see a staircase behind you. It tells me I don't think you're in there anymore.
Right. Yep.
You've written 2 books. Like, and how many kids do you have?
I have 3.
3, okay, because I saw a bunch of names up on that banister, so I knew it wasn't just the one anymore.
Yep.
So, like, you're literally living a life beyond your wildest dreams now compared to, like, what it was 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
if you would have told me even 5 years ago, like, hey, you're going to smile, you're going to appreciate life, you're going to find the good, I'd have been like, no, I'm not. You know what I mean? And here, yeah.
How is it to actually feel yourself laugh now? That's one of the things that I forgot. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, I never really, like, even as a comedian, I knew when I heard something funny, I would process it and then go, laugh, it's funny. And I would laugh, but I wasn't laughing with my body. I was laughing with my head. And
I was the same way, nothing. I didn't smile for nothing. And And I was always the same way. I'm funny. I'm always, I always have something to say, but I never laughed either. And nothing. And now it's just, I smile all the time. It feels so much better.
Your stomach can hurt from laughter. Like, like I didn't know that people said grateful other than Thanksgiving. You know what I
Right.
mean? I didn't know that word was thrown around all year round. I just thought it was dropped on Thanksgiving as something that you say before you ate.
Right.
When you, like people say they're grateful every day. That's something that
Right.
people
Yeah.
do.
And now I'm assuming we're both those people now. And yeah, it's incredible. So
I do gratitude lists every day.
Yep.
I do my daily inventory, and part of that is my gratitude list. Part of that is also I work on my resentments too. Have you been doing any kind of therapy?
I haven't lately. My childhood therapist texts me all the time. And then I have on TikTok, I actually have a therapist that I Facebook message like daily. So I guess kind
Okay.
of.
Yeah, you kind of do. I mean, it
I'm
doesn't
doing
have to
it, just
be.
not checked into a doctor's office, paying a payment. Like
Yeah.
Isolina that come to me on TikTok and on Facebook is a huge blessing to me. And she's legitimately a trauma therapist. I've never
Yep.
seen a trauma therapist before. Now I have,
And I feel like what you do, like this weekend, was basically a huge peer therapy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like peer to peer. Like none of you are certified, maybe, or maybe some of you are certified. I don't know. But,
No, I don't
some of
believe
you
so.
could be certified in peer specialty. But basically, a peer specialist is a therapist who has a background in the field of whatever kind of trauma or addiction that you've had. And they just didn't go to school to be a therapist. They just went to school to get a certificate because they have the background of living the experience, not reading the book on it. So I
Right.
love talking to people. Like I haven't been in therapy since rehab, but my therapy is this.
Right.
Talking to you, or I did 2 podcasts earlier, one for another girl's show, and then she did mine. And that was like a 2-hour conversation between the two. Like, that's my therapy. This is my therapy. Like, just finding ways to connect with other people that you would think, looking at us on paper, we have nothing in common. But then we
Yeah.
talk and you find out, like, oh, it doesn't matter, because the biggest thing they have in common is like their addictions and the things that they would lean towards and the way that they, found the solution in a bottle, as opposed to found a solution and just working out a problem in real life, because that problem didn't
Absolutely.
go away. You know,
And
I
I
always
feel the same way. And I don't want to call it an argument, but a disagreement ensued between me and another person who's pretty, prominent in my community. So I had mentioned doing like kind of like Alcoholic Anonymous, but where you could share your trauma too. Like you didn't have to be an alcoholic to come. You could just come and share your trauma. She said, are you referring to SA? And I said, yeah. Well, that's not something like people come home and just want to go sit on, and you don't have the degree to do it. And that offended me. And I took a poll on TikTok about it, and like 90% of the people said, I would rather talk to somebody like me or you that's been through it any day of the week than somebody who learned it out of a book. And I'm not going against therapy by any means, but I think it's important to interact with, like you said, a community that understands you.
Yeah, we literally do trauma bonding meetings here on Saturday nights at our mental health meeting center. My wife and I started. So like
That's amazing.
my wife and I started a mental health meeting center in our town back in May. We opened in July, and we wanted to do it all during COVID, but COVID,
Yeah.
and we're both sober. Our sober date is the same. It's 2/29/20, leap day. And but yeah, we wanted meetings, but we didn't want to do just AA and NA. We wanted to be able to like have support. Like my wife got diagnosed with MS in August. And so we've been having support groups for people who have like lifelong diseases, you know what I mean? And this way they can come and talk. Or we
Right.
trauma
That's amazing.
bonding, we do LGBTQ meetings, medical marijuana, and the families of people with addicts. So this way it's kind of like Al-Anon, but we don't call it Al-Anon. It's mostly
Right.
they can come and talk to other addicts. So these family members come in, they talk to me and like my sponsee and his wife and people that are like other addicts, so they can hear the addict's perspective from recovery to help them feel better about what their kid is going through. They can ask us questions as people who have been there. And I like doing stuff like that too,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
AA
I
is
think
great. AA saved my life, but there's a lot
right.
more
That's what
to
I'm saying
life than
too.
just
But there
AA.
should be other options there if they're wanted, and they're wanted a lot of
They're
the time. Because
needed.
I've wanted them, I've needed them, and they haven't been anywhere around me. You know what I mean?
They are
And
so needed. Whether it's virtual, like whether you do it on Zoom or a
right,
Skype, you can have up to like 500 people or like 50 people on Skype at one time. So like whether you do like a big kind of thing like that, like, hey, this is the link for blah 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 time. I'm going to send it out to 50 of you. And that kind of stuff, it can be kind of chaotic, but you kind of find the good in the chaos.
right.
Sometimes chaos is good.
And that's what I've learned. Some chaos is good. It's not all bad.
Sometimes you get addicted to chaos.
Yeah.
And that's another kind of thing where, like, when things are too settled and they're too good, you're like, when is it going to happen?
Yeah, what's going on? What's
Yeah,
going on here? You're
this isn't
looking for
supposed to be.
something.
Yeah, look. Now, when your TikTok, I'll have the link to that too for people that don't already follow you. When that started like blowing up, what did your mom had something to say?
I have not heard a comment from her. No.
No.
All I got was I'm tired of getting videos of you at 5:30 in the morning.
How long ago was that? That it really like, was it a year or two ago?
It was about a year ago. I sat at about 60 to 80,000 followers for quite a while, and it was right around then. So that's all she had to say, and what I had to say back. I posted the screenshot of what she said and said, "Whoever's sending these to her, stop now." So I haven't heard from her since. So.
Well, they stop.
It's really odd because they all have like anybody that contributed, in my opinion, to my abuse and to keeping me drunk and wanting me to do these things. None of them have surfaced since this came out, and that says a lot about them, not me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a lot of like, I don't even want to go give her any more material.
Right.
That's what that tells me, is like they're just afraid that you're gonna write about it.
Yeah, and not just that.
That's
like
a good thing.
of,
That's a really good thing, though, in my opinion.
a lot of non-accountability because there's a lot of things addressed. And then on TikTok, I mean, you've seen my videos. I speak of a lot of things that happened to me, and at least the people that know me probably know, like, oh, my mom, they know. So now everybody knows what you guys have done. That caused everything that it's caused, and so no one's really had much to say, thankfully.
Does the uncle's wife know about you?
She does.
Okay, yeah, and still, it's like, I'm happily married. La la la.
As far as I'm aware, yep.
Yeah, it's not mind blowing. It happens. Unfortunately, we see it happen all the time where people can't get out of their own way and they just get really comfortable with what situation they're in and they can't see a way out of it, and all they can do is just find a way to make themselves comfortable, as uncomfortable as they're going to be.
As uncomfortable as they're going to be. I think you're right by that. Part of me, I don't know how to feel about her because, like I told you, she was a minor, very young when he met her, and I still kind of look at her as a victim, and I think that she'll someday come to terms. Not to say that she hasn't already provided children, all that, but someday I think that she'll see, holy shit, what I just do.
Well, yeah, especially because if they had girls.
Yeah, and like the whole family, like I'm not the only one that was an alcoholic. Like the whole family is an alcoholic. Like, and I don't believe that his wife was that either. So that she stuck around for a lot of stuff just tells me she might, not all the way understand what she's still done. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we can't, think for her, and
Absolutely.
we know that as people in recovery, people are going to make their choices and we're not going to be able to change them for them. And just like your dad gave you tough love, is all we can do is just say, hey, I'm here when you need me.
Absolutely.
Doors open, my DMs are open if you ever need to talk,
And I've reiterated that on TikTok too. Like, even if you know me and you think that I'm not going to respond to you, tell me, because I'm going to. When it comes to that, like when it comes to anything at this point in my life, I don't hold grudges, I mean, against certain people in my family, but beyond that, like if you've, like I always reiterate that no matter who you are, come to me, I'll be a voice for you. So
yeah, and that's the thing, is we have to be able to talk. We have to have somebody we can feel we can talk to, and even if it's a stranger on the internet for a half an hour right now, you know what I mean? Just having a conversation is what keeps me sober all the time, and getting to chat and meet new people and learning about people, because it makes other people's struggles either feel, good because they went through that too and they aren't alone, or they make, me, I'm like, wow, my situation was nothing like that. and I can feel, you know what I mean? Even
Yeah,
gratitude that I
absolutely.
had my situation, because it could have been so much worse. Like, I was very fortunate, and I know that. I was very fortunate. My parents been together 40 years to this day, and they love each other to death, and I know that.
I think a lot of the times, like even in my situation, even though as bad as it was, it could have been, like you said, it could have been worse. Like there's worse. And I think that almost all of the time things could have been worse for anybody. And that's what we need to realize. Like, okay, could have been worse, but we have to grow from that,
There's people that get fucking locked in rooms for years and get abused.
Yeah.
Like literally. And they have kids with these abusers. And it's horrifying. And you hear about it like the fucking neighbor next door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like the random neighbor that could be somebody's uncle.
Yeah, just like here in Ohio. Where are you from?
I'm born and raised in South Jersey, right outside of Philly, but I live in the.
You said it at the beginning. I couldn't remember. But here in Ohio, like just like there was women, like the House of Horrors in Cleveland. You ever heard of this? These women were locked in this house, some of them for 12 and 15 years, and that's what I mean. I don't know how much worse it could get than that, but in my situation, it could have been worse. Like
I've seen, in Criminal Minds, I think did an episode that was based on that. I remember Criminal Minds had an episode where they like rescued these dozen women from like this house where they were like in cells in this basement, like some crazy shit. So yeah, it could always have been worse, and that's why we tell our story. And it's therapeutic. Let's be honest. Even doing this, how do you feel now that we got to sit down and talk?
Oh, I love to talk. I always get up feeling like I feel so much better.
Yeah, and I try not to talk as much. I'm the host. I try to like have the guests, and I can't help it because I get excited and I like to talk. Like I was lucky enough to win most talkative in 8th grade and 12th.
No, and that's another thing I appreciate for this because as you know, all I'm like, hey, 15 more minutes. Oh, I still downloaded Zoom after you said Skype. Like I do all that and I have such anxiety, and that's when I used to drink, if I had 3 beers, I would tell you my whole life story, my grandma's whole life, my mom, everybody you want to know, but my anxiety, like that's one of the hardest things for me about not drinking anymore is being able to,
Yeah, how am I going to communicate? Yeah, that was me getting on stage again sober at 9 months going, how am I going to be in a bar sober and go on stage sober?
Yeah.
And I practiced by speaking at a lot of AA meetings. So I got used to standing at a podium and just talking. And I would just sprinkle in some jokes here and there just to try to get some laughs. And so that was how I warmed myself up to do that. It's you got to crawl before you walk and before you run. And like I told you, like it's going to be a regular conversation with no direction. And it's going to and I promise it'll be light and easy. And I'll be talking with you, and it's not just okay. It's your show, Katey. Tell me your story now. That's so boring to me. I would never listen to a podcast like that, so I would never put out a podcast like that. I'm too talkative to shut the hell up. Like someone asked me before, like, do you write down notes? Like somebody was like, is doing podcasting now. They're like, do you write down like a lot of pre-questions and all that? I'm like, no, I don't want to sound like a friggin' robot. I want to be able to like. When I'm listening to a podcast of an interview, I'm hearing people talking, I'm hearing the questions, and I have questions. So I like my questions to be organic and in the moment. If we go off tangent on a rant, we go off tangent in a rant. That's just direction we go in. I'll bring it back. I know where we left off, and I'll bring it back. We'll recap it and keep going. And I find that to be a lot more fun.
I'm ADD and I forgot, so we would have never got back to it.
So many people
have doing things like this. I've isolated myself and been severely anxious, and doing things like this has made it better. Going and meeting Tiffany and Ashley and Chrissy and Jackie was just that I never thought.
Chrissy's episode is so funny too. I don't know if you watched her episode, but she was on a couple weeks ago, and that was a very fun episode where she kind of had the same. She was like, I think I blacked out while I was talking because I just told you everything, and I didn't realize that I was so comfortable to talk to you like that. So I'm usually not that comfortable opening up when I first talk to somebody. I'm like, is that a good thing? She's like, it's a really good thing. I feel great about it. But it took her a couple of days
for her because I can tell that she needs somebody that that I'm so glad she got to do that. I watched some of it, but I have to watch the rest of it.
She's coming back. She's coming back on Saturday with that Ohio panel because when I was talking to her, I found out that she ran away at 18 to get married, to some dude. And I already had a girl from Ohio run away.
What we do in Ohio.
This girl, Ashley, she ran away with some dude 3 hours to get married and left high school to get married his senior year, just like Chrissy did. I'm like, what is with these girls in Ohio? I got to get them all together in a room. So
that one didn't even want to marry me. So at least mine's a little different.
if you're not doing anything Saturday, feel free to come by. I'll send you the link and you can drop in if you want. I'm letting anybody just drop in from Ohio for as long as they want to be on for. I'll just send you the link, and if you can hop in, you can hop in. If you can't, you can't.
Okay.
But there's going to be like 5 or 6 of us that I know of, and I'm going to send out the links at 10:30. And anybody from
10:30
Ohio.
at night?
No, I'm an early. I'm an early. I told my therapist when I got to rehab, I said I'm an early bird and I'm a night owl. She was like, she's like, you're an insomniac, honey. You're neither of those things.
Okay,
You just need
I'm gonna try to stay up. I should be able to. So.
No, I do it early. No, I'm an early
in
person.
The morning?
In the morning, yeah.
Oh,
for sure.
Okay, that was asking a lot for 10:30.
No, I can't function. I'm in bed by 8 p.m. usually. You know what I mean? The kid goes to bed and I go to bed at 8 p.m.
I'm usually asleep before my kids fall asleep. So.
Hell yeah. Like, I come here so early because I have AA every morning at 9 a.m. here. And then we have a Russian tortoise. That's our like emotional support animal in here.
That's amazing.
And his name's Vlad. He's over there. He's in his little cage right now asleep. And he's like 6 years old. He'll live to be 85, so that's exciting. But he hangs out in here with me all day. But I got to turn his lights on by 8:30 in the morning.
That's so cool.
I'm always here making coffee and sitting down, and I'm promoting whatever video of the day that I'm promoting. And I work from my office, and I go to AA at 9. Then I usually hop on a podcast around 10 or 11 if I can find somebody to talk to because I need to talk.
Yep.
So thank you for taking the time to talk. And I'll talk to you soon. I'll let you know when this is coming out. It'll be sometime next week. But I'll give you a heads up when I know exactly what day and all that kind of stuff. But send me links when you get a chance, please, of your books for direct links or maybe a website, whatever you prefer. And I'll make sure.
I'll send you my Amazon links.
Perfect. And I'll put them right in the description for anybody listening or watching.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katey, so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.